Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Shaista and I'll be moderating today's webinar. Ameyo, the leading provider of customer experience platform, have been working across the globe with more than 2,000 clients in different verticals. Today we are presenting Demystifying Customer Experience in BFSI with Omnichannel Contact Center, presented by Naman Gupta, Vice President and Head, Customer Service, India First Life Insurance, and Sachin Bhatia, co-founder, Global Sales and Marketing Head at Ameyo. So just a little housekeeping before we get started. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them in the chat box in your GoToWebinar control panel. I'll bring them up during the presentation and we will also have time for questions at the end. So today in the webinar, we will be discussing how with omni-channel contact centers, BFSI vertical are able to deliver contextual and personalized customer engagement. Moving forward to the agenda of webinar, we will be talking about customer experience in BFSI vertical and their expectations and how omnichannel has taken over siloed communication. We would also be discussing about the real life challenges with the legacy contact center software and also technology adopted in India First Life Insurance with its impact on customer experience. Now, without further ado, we will turn the time to Naman Gupta, our first speaker. He comes with an overall experience of 19 years in BFSI sector, of which he has rich experience of 17 years in life insurance domain. Naman is the founder member of India First Life Insurance and has been a core member in driving various functions of life insurance business. He's passionate about delivering customer delight across the company touchpoints and is currently engaged in building the model that can enhance the customer experience. During his prior assignments with ICI Prudential, Stock Holding Corporation of India, and Reliance Retail, he has not only played a key role in settling up multiple branches successfully, but also managed branch operations diligently over the course of time. Welcome, Naman. Our other speaker for today is Sachin Bhatia. He is the co-founder, Global Sales and Marketing Head at Ameyo, and has been involved over 800 CX projects across 30 plus countries. He's a computer scientist and has also been leading enterprise sales and marketing, which has led Ameyo to acquire global footprint with presence over 60 countries. Welcome, Sachin. So we can start with our webinar. Over to Sachin.
We are muted. Hey Shaista, thank you so much. Good morning, everyone, and I'm very, very happy that you could join us on this Thursday morning. Now, I was thinking, what should be when we say demystifying CX and we have CX leaders, what could we talk about that might be interesting? And a story came to my mind, which I want to share with you guys while I was running this morning, and I have a story around running also. So I said, can you come on the next slide, please? Right. So I have been involved in the CX space, and CX is a recent term which got evangelized. Contact centers were thought of as infrastructures. We were thought of as infrastructure providers for quite some time, and mostly we used to talk to IT around what can we do in the organization, and it was always phones, ACDs, IVRs as infrastructures. But over the last 4 to 5 years, we have seen those conversations really changing. And today, some of these stats that are shown are part of the board presentations, management presentations, team presentations, operations presentations, wherein the emphasis on the experience of the customer, whether it's the acquisition journey, service journey, retention journey, they are ubiquitous, which is phenomenal, which means that the need of doing a change is pretty well established. And the question is, what should we change? And Now I'll come to my story. So I've recently turned 40, right? And my wife told me that at 40 you should start getting those health checkups, right? And I got a health checkup done last year, and my cholesterol levels were high, and my doctor said, Sachin, you should change your lifestyle, right? You should put some focus on fitness. And this morning when I was running, I was thinking fitness is something like customer experience. Everybody talks about it. It's pretty simple to understand, but extremely hard to execute because it requires a certain level of discipline, cognizance, and not just new tools and gadgets and gym memberships, but a certain amount of discipline that has to be amalgamated with your daily life that is transactional. And that is one point that I would like to emphasize, that as leaders in the CX space, there's enough on the plate already, which is transactional, which is operational. And what is it that one would like to focus on, which contributes to what we call as changing customer experience? Now, we have observed there are two kinds of discussions. There are transformational discussions. For example, we want 30% of our interactions to go on digital channels. Those are transformational projects. And then there are projects which are incremental projects. And I'll talk a few of those in examples that I'll give. But the point I'm trying to make is, like fitness, and I give this example because a lot of you would relate immediately to it, because that's something that's back of the mind, that's important, but not urgent. And similarly, CX on a day-to-day basis, things seem okay. But when we look at stuff in a long run, the impact that we are making on the CX by making those small incremental changes, whether it's the behavior of the agent, whether it's the matrices that we are measuring and emphasizing. I'll give you an example of one interesting metric that's debated a lot. All of us have seen something called average handling time, right? Uh, Whether increase in average handling time, is it a good sign or a bad sign? Quite a debate that I've seen, and I've heard arguments from both factions. But it's an interesting argument, because if you are listening to the customer, if you're hearing his or her problem and resolving it, the experience will actually get better. But that means the average handling time will actually go down. It's not an efficiency metric; it's an experience metric. And none of the arguments, whether it's good, bad, is right. However, you would need to take a stand that do we measure AHT to judge effectiveness of our contact center, or do we measure AHT to judge the experience that the customer is having? So I'll leave you with this thought. Let's go to the next slide. A lot of things have changed, over the past few years in the CX space. Shaista, can we have the next slide? Yeah. So some of the examples, the customer is, I think, because of the mobile revolution, the or from their friends through social networks, they're highly informed. Discussions, if there's a faux pas happening at Indigo where a bot says thank you to a sarcastic comment, and all of you would have seen it, the customer would know. So he's really, really highly informed about product, services, perceptions. Technology has helped in terms of making the experience better. The now experience, as I call it, recently, stuff like WhatsApp is now available for customers to interact with the organizations, and that's convenience. That's real convenience versus, let's say, 10 years back or even 5 years back, when one needed to visit a branch or call into a contact center or even go to a web page and chat with someone. Today, they can do it when they want it. The channels have exploded, right? And we have experienced this as consumers, that how our social lives are impacted by those channels, and such is the scenario in the B2C space also, that consumers then expect organization to be that person through which they could reach, that person who can be reached through any channel that is accessible to the customer today, and it's available 24/7. There is also an angle of proactivity. why didn't you know, or why did you inform me, if something was missing. The contractual and what I call as the fine print doesn't define it. The experience and proactivity would define whether the customer would retain or not. And the I gave this example in a lot of talks that I've done. I've done one with Naman also. That simple stuff like knowing the customer, why he's coming in, if that itself can be identified across channels, that would be a big experience change, because the customer starts believing that the organization cares, the organization knows, and somebody is doing something about what I am saying. It's not that they don't expect service disruptions, but they just expect you to know them and empathize and prove that you're acting on them. One of the areas that I personally evangelize a lot, and I think it gets missed out, is that customer experience is directly proportional to agent experience. Remember that those frontline folks who are actually talking to the customer are gonna create that experience. We can digitize, we can put bots. However, the perception of good or bad is finally gonna be because of a person. Even if you guys love Uber, the evangelism would actually happen when they have refunded a bad trip or taken an action on a driver where a person was involved. Seamless is table stake. If you want to create devotees, if you want lifetime value of a customer, if you want people who will promote you, then it has to be an experience which is a wow, which can only be driven by emotions and through human beings. And hence, agents' experience on delivering some of these services to the end customer becomes extremely, extremely important. Next slide, please. So there is one theme that Shaista mentioned about called silos, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that. The channels, as we know them, are increasing day by day. We have seen service being delivered on Viber. We have recently seen service being delivered on WhatsApp. It started with notifications. Today, you can actually have a conversation with a customer on WhatsApp and actually manage it as a process with the recent opening up of the WhatsApp API. Web, phone, chat, calls, and even a face-to-face doesn't happen anymore, but it's still important. All these channels are available to the customer, and customer can and would come from any channel for any contacts. We cannot force the customer that you would need to call in or you would need to send an email. If it's a document, it could be collected on WhatsApp or a chat or as an attachment on an email. Our processes cannot define what the customers will do. We can try it, but then the customer would sort of eventually churn on us, right, or give up on us. A recent experience, I was trying to open a bank account for my wife, and we were asked to visit a branch. Now that's normal, and I discovered that there is one bank which doesn't require you to do that. You could actually open it completely on a mobile app. So the whole acquisition happened, and then there was a KYC that happened at our house. So this bank doesn't have any branches and would take a lot of customers from the other bank in future, just because of this reason, because the acquisition strategy has been figured out really well and it was seamless, and there were channels available. If there was a doubt, we could chat right there and then. The problem with these channels, as we understand, Shaista, next slide please, is that the organization internally, for customer, it's one problem, but when we look at organizations, there is sometimes a separate chat team, which is okay. This is a different skill, sometimes a different email team. But even the context of what was being discussed, if somebody has lost a credit card, that information, basic information, what was the number, and I'm not talking about authorizations problem, but I'm talking about establishing the context, why the customer has come, who is the customer, was there a previous interaction across channels, are simple stuff that we have seen missing in fairly large organizations. And those are, as I said, baby steps which should be taken immediately to establish context to a conversation. There's another problem with the context, another kind of silo that exists, which is hard to discover, but you would see that happening, is between the front office and the back office. So if your contact center is taking up problems from the customer, and those problems are eventually going to be resolved by a certain back office department, the handoff of the context or the awareness of the context at both levels also seems to be a challenge. So we see escalations being handled on small WhatsApp groups. Whoever can shout the fastest would get the query resolved and stuff like that, instead of a seamless experience of a simple workflow of front office, back office, stuff getting routed and context also getting passed with all the information. Technology-wise, this is extremely simple to understand. It might not be very simple to execute when you go to IT, because they might not understand the context. However, these are projects like running require discipline, like fitness, they require discipline, they require small hammering across departments for a sustained period of time for these small changes, which will impact 10%, 15%, 20%, 30% of the KPIs that one wants to look at. So I'll summarize with a couple of points. First is that, like fitness, CX is something which is not urgent but very important, and it requires one to take a disciplined set of actions on real KPIs, which are leading indicators, which you can change. I gave an example of average handling time. Would you want to increase it? Would you want to decrease it? All of us do measure NPS, but NPS is a lagging indicator. You cannot change anything on the floor every day to change NPS. You have to understand what metric would change in 1 month, whether it's the time that agent takes to answer, whether it's time that somebody is waiting on a queue, whether it's percentage of queries which get resolved on an automated channel. Those are simple matrices to establish. And I'll leave you with one small story. I was talking to a CX leader of a very large organization in India, and there was a management mandate, like in most organizations, that we need to improve CX. I got a 15-minute session from them where they said, this is how we are changing our brand. They had rebranded. This will be really customer focused. We want to improve it. And the only question that I asked them is, how do you measure it today? And they didn't have an answer. So what can you improve if you don't know what to improve? And hence, starting with baby steps, starting with KPIs that you can impact, and experimenting with some of the transformational projects would be a good idea going forward. With that, I am very, very happy to introduce Naman. Naman is a good friend. We have spoken on a few panels together. He's also been a customer. And he's one guy who has, over a sustained period of time, and you will see in some of the slides that he has shared, actual KPI improvements and the impact of that on CX would be very, very visible. He has used both culture as well as technology for making those transformations. Naman, thank you so much for joining us, and over to you, Naman.
Thank you, Sachin. Okay, I think already Sachin has set the background, and it really helps me a lot. So I'll start first an update just about the BFSI, when we were talking about how India is progressing and how basically, adoption of the fintech is happening across the BFSI. So if you see this slide, it just talks about how the insurance, particularly in 2015, where it was, where it has moved in 2017, which is now appearing at 24% usage. A good part is India is now number 2 in the adoption rate at BFSI, which is at 52%. The sources are given. Now, the another very good part, which is in the coming slide, Shrestha. Shrestha, can you move to the next slide, please? Yeah. So if you guys see the right-hand corner, which shows within insurance, India has the highest adoption in India for the insurance product. As of now, if we see today's time, most of the general insurance companies are completely in like an online type segment, and even the other insurance players, whether it's life, health, are also coming up. So the good part is India's fintech adoption is much higher. So this gives a comfort that yes, Indian customers are moving while adopting and using these technologies. So what comes next is the critical part. Yeah, Shrestha, can we move to the next one? Now, these are the different channels which are available. I don't need to repeat all that. I am believing most of us knows that there's nothing different. But what comes here and what becomes critical is, eventually I'll talk about is, what is required for your company. We have hundreds of the channels available today, but what is required for your industry and company specific is what particularly a company needs to focus on. I'll just share on that. Can we just move on to the next slide? So this is just again some update that, in today's time, the customer connects through online mode, which Sachin also spoke. Almost 51% people connect through online, which is portals, web chat, through mobile, 31%, through traditional, 18%, which also includes the call center type of a scenario. They basically look forward a simplified process, which basically, it just expect them to, combine all the information. If you would have seen one of the slide of Sachin, which says that on our email, he has already given his account number, but when again he has to connect to the agent or to the web chat, they are again asking the same information. So they are expecting the information should be available once I have given. And the last part is the personalized experience, what each one of people are looking. So in case, in a simple way, if I have already given some request information, or if my policy is lapsed and my customer is coming, we can give them the tailor-made solution stating, hey sir, we understood your policy is lapsed. What can I do to make sure that you should not lose the benefits? Now, before we move to any other slide, the major part which each one of us needs to think, like I shown you in the previous slide, that multiple channel points are there. Everybody talks about technology, social media, Twitter, WhatsApp. The very basic thing which a company needs to remember is what is their objective and what is their vision. And I'll give you an example of India First. India First Life Insurance, my customer base is not from metro city or urban city. It is basically from tier 2, tier 3, tier 4. So if suppose today I, completely go in a big way in social media and all that, trust me, it's not going to help me. So what I need to understand and identify what is that which is going to help me to cater my customer and creating their customer experience. Now, India First per se, we have our call center which has been consumed or been used by the customers as one of the top touch points. One of the reason is because India First does not have its own branches. We do have our network through bank branch, but when it comes to the the direct resolution and all that, it is with the call center. So which means I need to equip my call center better, and of course the associated backend process, like Sachin spoke that you need to have a CRM which should basically log all the status. A backend process should be aligned, because only the front end people can handle the customer issue, address and pick up their issues. Now, why I'm saying what the objective one should carry is, suppose if we are getting a lot of calls on a call center and we understand that there's a challenge in bandwidth, there's a challenge in timing, there's a challenge of AST, which Sachin also spoke, whether it's a parameter of judging the effectiveness or is it really experience index. So we need to just define that objective which is related to our company. Now, I'll tell you what India First had a challenge specific and how we arrived. So India First again had a challenge of a high abandon ratio. Like I said, call center is one of the major touch points for India First customers. We had a long hold time, and of course we were requiring always the more manpower, infrastructure requirement. We had no touch point which was available 24/7, which means if the information is required by a customer at any point of time for any reason, it was not available. He'll only be able to get in touch once my people comes to handle email or to handle the call center. There was no single view of customer, no proactive communication, which basically keeps the customer informed. And of course, all this leads to a higher repeat ratio, which means for the similar query, similar request, the customer is again and again calling and asking, hey, what happened to my request? Is it been done? Is the payment been done? Is the payment been credited? And so on and so forth. So these were the challenges. Now looking to the challenges, what India First straight away came is, okay, what are the solution we need to give, which is aligned to our objective. Now, what we said, okay, we need to give basically an empowerment to our customer, which basically we aligned what are our top queries and requests which customer ask. Now I'm sure the people who are from insurance can resonate that in insurance it's usually the like fund value, unit statement, policy status. These are some of the queries which customer quite often ask. And when we are in JFM period, of course, the premium receipt or premium paid certificate becomes the topmost query and request. Now we said these are the common type of a thing. So let's build it on a IVR platform. So what we did, we identified those, top queries, requests, and then we started aligning them through the automated and intelligent IVR system. Now today's time when I'm talking to you, we have an solution. Of course, Ameyo industry helped us in making that possible, and really thanks to them. It worked us, and it's really working for us. And how it worked us is what I'm going to speak to in the coming slides. Shasta, can we move on? So what we did, understanding our customer, of course, India First was, I can say, one of the first company who basically launched the tab-based sales process that we started in the year 2012. And of course, since it was completely tab-based process, which means a digital platform, we then invented our other service touchpoints also. So we then created a very high-tech in-house contact center. When I said high-tech, I'll explain you exactly what really small things matters to the customer when it comes to a customer experience. We also then realized that apart from IVR, we also should have a chatbot solution, and we introduced. And today, the India First chatbot is something which is offering again a good number of query requests which customer can do on their own 24/7 without depending anybody. Now we also coupled up with some of the other extensions that if customer today asks to my call center agent about any of those requirements, how some of them can be done instantly. So if my customer is calling to my call center and asking for a, say, renewal premium, or asking for a soft copy of a policy document, or asking for a unit statement, it can happen instantly. When I say instantly, within 5 seconds, it will happen, it will reach to them. And the communication becomes very critical. So the communication, we said, okay, it needs to be instant. It should be sent through smart SMS, and also it should be sent through email if they were registered. Now, what the benefits we have got out of that? On a sales process, the average stat is 2 to 8 hours, because now there's no physical documentation processes involved. It's completely on a digital mode, and a little scrutiny happens and it moves directly for issuance or the processing. Now with the call center part, some of you may be amazed. So like till last year, my volume was like more than 3.5 lakh calls in a year. This year, till this period, which is December, I have got not more than 1.5 lakh calls. Now, what does it mean? My top query request, which basically constitutes in our insurance like fund value, policy detail, premium paid certificate, unit statement, has been automated. And how it worked is, out of these requests, almost 81% of the customers are using now IVR option, which means now they are no more dependent on my call center timing, and it is 24/7 and it is instant. So this is the benefit which we have got. Now, how it further helped us, it reduced or it released my manpower thing at the call center level. So how it helped? It basically led to a less than 2% of the abandoned ratio. And how it further helped me, which just debate Sachin started on the AST, whether it's experience or the thing. AST earlier we had a parameter of effectiveness. Now it is no more a parameter for effectiveness. In fact, it's our experience. In fact, we give it more AST. We want people to communicate clearly what all things can be done, what all are value added services. So customer gets sufficient time to get it addressed. The agent should not be in a hurry. So these are the things which basically further help us building the customer experience. Of course, like I said, we also then created a chatbot which is named as Iris, and this Iris further helped us to handle the queries of the customer again who are tech savvy or want to visit website and want to again do the things on their own. We then further created instant resolution basis on certain requests which we see what customer is required. So the stress is each one of you or each company has to understand what their customer want and which mode of communication is more effective to them. When it comes to the contact center, I'll also touch upon like CRM. So if customer gives a request and after that customer does not know whether it will be done in 2 days or 5 days or 7 days, customer tend to follow up. How you can do it, which we did in India first, we then aligned the automatic communication. And when I'm saying automatic, I'm not talking about automatic, which is acknowledgement, just okay, hey, we have received your request and it will address in whatever ABCD. What I'm talking about, the moment we categorize any request, customer say, hey boss, we have got your address change request, it will be done in 2 days. After 2 days, they get a request, hey, your address change request has already been effected. Thank you. So if you are keeping the customer informed, you will have a less queries on your call center. And of course, then your call center agent can focus much more on creating a wow experience or a real customer experience, which means the place where they really need to, do their work effectively. So this is how we then, moved on. The very critical part which further comes on in this monitoring and creating a customer experience. Shasha, can we move to a next slide? So the call center in today's time also at times faces an issue that the standardized information is not there. Either they have information on the desktops or PCs of the agent, and at times it is not updated or not upgraded. So there's a challenge in terms of standard response to the customer. So what we did, understanding that part, we built something called knowledge repository, which is again a product. It works like a Google. So all my content, all my information, all my queries, requests, everything which customer asks is updated there. So wherever my request, issue, concern is being asked by the team, they are equipped. And it's not only about call center. The same information is available across the distributor, across the branches. So if customer touch base with any touch point, he'll get a standard response. If they need to ask any particular documentation or anything, they'll get a standard response. So that further gives a very good customer experience. Of course, you equally need to focus on voice of customer. And when I say voice of customer, it's not only just, okay, we have got it done. Like Sachin mentioned, NPS is definitely, takes a long time, but transactional voice of customer is what really help you. So in case if you get a negative, get into a detail. Let's just understand whether it's a process flow or it's really just the interaction which created the negative impact. Now, all that part is one, what I just spoke about, how the objective of the company should be there, what vision should be there, and what touch points you need to strengthen, knowing what customer really wants from your company side. Now, how our company, which I said, a call center thing, which is working, and today's time I can boast about it, that our call center is one among the top best in life insurance industry. We have done the benchmarking. I can't name it, but all the top brands, with the top brands, we are somewhere equal or we are higher than that. And it is really happening, working. A lot of good experiences are happening, and I'll share some of them with you guys, like how technology created an experience. In our call center, if customer comes, he has to select the language only once. I remember even if I go to a particular big brand, I again have to choose the language even though I call from my registered number. In our company, you have just chosen once the language. If you give a call from the same number again, you don't need to choose. Our system automatically, intelligently identify that if you have one policy, two policy, or three policy. And just for example, if suppose during this period, your customer wants a premium paid certificate or renewal receipt, you don't need to punch in any policy number. It identifies you through your mobile number linked to your client ID. And if you say, I need fund value or I need unit statement, it sends you instantly for all the policies. So it does not ask even customer to punch in policy number 1 or 2 or 3. So this gives an experience to the customer. Now, in today's time, because of all this technology and the team member available, at each of this IVR tree, the customer has an option to connect again to the agent any point of time. It's not that they have to hear completely 8 or 9 options, then connect to the agent. They have a freedom. The third is, with this technology, the industry standard goes like 19 to 20 seconds, which means once they want to speak to the executive, it takes 90 to 20 seconds. That's one of the best. We are operating in 3 to 5 seconds range, which means almost in 5 seconds the connection is there, which is like almost instant connection. So these are the things in a technology which really can help a company, because it works for your abandon ratio, it releases your bandwidth, it basically helps you. And it's not only that, we have saved almost 50% of our cost, which we could have incurred on our manpower, on our infrastructure and telecom costs. So it's a win-win proposition for both, for customer as well as for the organization. So this is how we are effectively monitoring. Now I'll just go to the next slide, Shrestha. So like I said, these are some of the things which we got it done, which are monitoring and all that is required. We have an excellent wall board which gives me a real-time update in terms of how many calls I have offered, which means how many calls called, how many answered, what is the abandon ratio, how many people are in a queue, how many agents are logged in, how many of them are break-in, what's my abandon ratio currently going on, and what is my service level agreement. Just for the information, service level in a call center like 80-20 principle work, which means almost 80% of the calls should be addressed in 20 seconds. Currently, India First is addressing 95% calls in 20 seconds. So this is the level of the update which you get it. If you see again this slide, it has something like repeat call flag. My agent, while picking the phone, already knows that this customer called me say 2 times in last 7 days, 4 times in last 15 days, 8 times in last 30 days. So he is prepared. He knows the context and he knows for what the customer has called for how many days. So it gives him a confidence. Okay, now I'll handle the customer in the most appropriate. And customer gives, oh wow, man, you already know for what all things I have already called you, and you are straight away addressing and answering my query. So these are the small things which really creates an experience and matters a lot. Yeah, so I'll move on to the next slide now. So this just a real life use case which we have used, and we have taken Ameyo's support. And like I mentioned, we basically identified the top query request which used to come on a call, which was quite generic in nature. When we basically put it into the automated IVR in an intelligent IVR system, we saw 42% of the inflow through IVR, which means more than a lakh of a call could have landed to me, to my agent, which had been addressed through IVR. And the options which are available on IVR, 80% of the customer are using IVR only now. So even if customer connects to us, we tell the information and again educate them, sir, this option is also available on IVR. This option is also available on our chatbot. Why don't you also use and experience that as well? And of course, then other features like it understand and recognize the unique client, it auto executes without asking, punching so many things or having a tree of 2 or 4 layers. We have just 2 layer, and in the 2 layer, customer is able to address their concerns. And of course, it leads to a direct connect to critical stage. If the claims is there of the policies lapse, it directly connects to the agent. So we don't want those people to wait. Is this enough? No, that's not really enough. So what is that India First passe is going to do eventually now? So the next part is we all spoke about IVR. Now, if we say the new things which are coming up is like a dynamic IVR. So IVR tree we have made, it's not really easy to change nowadays. And of course, if suppose I say JFM is going and when the flavor of this period is the renewal receipt, is there a possibility by which a renewal receipt option should come first? Now this requires a dynamism, which means the service provider need to align that how an IVR can be a dynamic, and that's something like should be like a plug and play and not much changes in the architecture. The over and above part is the voice bot. Now all these things what we spoke where customer still has to choose 1, 2 and hear it out. If the voice bot takes over, it's like customer says, hey, I want to know my fund value, and my system knows if fund value is available, it straight away goes instantly triggers to the customer and their issue is over. So which means there is no dynamic IVR is also required. All this will be taken care of. Of course, it's at nascent stage. Still in India, I'll say English has been more majorly been used correctly with more accuracy. So a lot of companies are working towards regional language, and like I said, for India First, if the solution is only towards English, probably I don't need it. But if you have a regional language solution, I'll be more than happy to consider and understand, because my customer base is not the metro one. So that's it what I had to say on India First and how we have used the technology. Over to you, Sachin.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Naman. This was very useful, especially the details of ground level execution that you guys have implemented. We have witnessed it, some of it firsthand, some of it you were able to do using the platform, but I think the impact is quite visible both in matrices and the growth that the organization has seen over time. Congratulations to you and your team, and thanks for sharing this with all of us. Team, as I set the context today, live fitness, CX is a journey. If you want to run a marathon, there are smaller steps. It's not. If you saw the slides that Naman presented over the past few years, the kind of changes a lot of it requires ground level understanding, getting deep down into which matrices you want to modify. If you're targeting 80% of the queries to be handled on the IVR, 42% adoption rate already, those don't happen just by thinking about it, but would require somebody to drive through that initiative. Technology, of course, acts as an enabler, and right partners accelerates it, but the thought and the alignment at the top level, and these are not expensive projects to run in terms of investment, but they are extremely expensive projects to run in terms of your mind share. So I think mind share is an overarching theme, and there are 3 thoughts that I have on which you should put your mind share going forward. Customers are going to come through all the channels. Choose your channels and your battles very carefully. If you're going on social, don't just do it for the sake of it. Then make sure that it's set well, because bad experiences are remembered more. So no interaction silos, the customer information across channels. Try to standardize it, try to make it seamless. Knowledge bases help, previous interactions help. Small changes on the user experience of the agent helps. No department silos. I can't emphasize this enough when I see some of these organizations, the back office, front office tussle that's there, that why is this still not resolved? Set those SLAs well and make sure that the process as well as systems are set there. And this is a cross-departmental thing. You might have to work with a claims department, which might not fall under you. You might want to work with the cards department, which might not fall under you, but the experience ownership is with the CX department or the service department. And finally, something that gets ignored, something that perhaps is the most important in delivering customer experience, is the agent experience, is understanding of the problem. I have seen 17, 18 applications open in front of an agent desk, and then we want him to create a world-class experience. That unification for the agent, the information organization. When we are working on, as consumers, when we are working on applications, look at the kind of applications Uber, Ola, Facebook, Flipkart, Amazon are giving us, and then look at the kind of applications we are putting in front of those millennials who are serving our customers. Try sitting in their shoes and see whether what we are asking is humanly possible. Right? Because their experience, their happiness, their understanding of the problem is eventually what creates a wonderful customer experience. So all of us are going to be on this journey for quite some time. We see disruptions happening in the industry, but those steps are not disruptive, folks. The steps that we need to take are simple to understand and requires a lot of discipline and perseverance for them to be making an impact in short term, mid term, and long term. With that, I would close the webinar. If there are any questions, we can take them now. Naman is available. I'm available. If there are thoughts, questions, do share them. Otherwise, it was very, very engaging for me. And thanks, Shaista, for organizing this. Questions, please.
Thank you, Naman, and thank you, Sachin. But we have few questions from our attendees. So one of the question is, like back office and front office sync, like Sachin spoke about back office and front office sync, and one of the attendee would like to understand here how to measure the accountability and bridge the gap.
Okay, excellent question. The answer is requires a longer deliberation, but I'll give you a couple of examples. So I was talking to one of the CX leaders, and they had implemented a queuing system, a case management system, and there was a back office. I'll simplify the problem for you. There's a front office queue and a back office queue. The front office looks at the problem and then categorizes the problem and raises it to the relevant back office queue. The back office queue routing was based on when the problem came into the back office queue, right? And if they have a query, they would give it back to the front office queue. So you start seeing the dilemma. So every time the query used to enter into the queue, the SLA used to be from the time it enters the queue, which is perfectly fine. These are two departments. I can only handle when it came to me. That is right. However, in the larger scheme of routing, you could have, or anybody could have routed or prioritized based on when did the query actually originate from the customer, right? This is a very simple thing to understand, that if a query came at 10 a.m. and it went into the back office queue at 1 p.m., whereas a query came at 12 p.m. and it went into the back office at, let's say, 12:30, at 1:30, which should have a higher priority, right? But this was not solved. So the SLA from the organization should be carried forward, and you don't want to penalize people on those SLAs, but incentivize them. So if we are meeting the customer SLA, both front office and back office should be rewarded. And then there should be those accountabilities of, what, when we are doing deep dive on when the SLA was breached, whether it was a staffing problem, resourcing problem, knowledge problem. But don't look at SLAs in silo. That's going to break the experience for the end customer. That's just one small example. We can have this conversation. It's a great question. The other second simple thing that I would say is that both front office and back office should see the same status. And if back office has updated anything, that should be available to front office in real time. Those two itself, I think, are low-hanging fruits which you can pick up and would start building accountability between these two. And no escalations on anything but the system, right? So isko dekh lena, ya, on a WhatsApp group, whoever can shout will get his query resolved faster should not happen. It should be, everything should be recorded in the system for an analysis post facto. I hope that sort of gives you direction, but happy to have that chat on LinkedIn. I will initiate this thread. This is a great question immediately after the webinar.
So we have another question for you, Naman. How important is organizational culture in building a customer experience oriented mindset?
So this question is basically being now, put across table across each company. And let me put it across. Unless it comes from a top level side and the entire company is aligned to that, it's not possible to do. Now, how it really helps, let me put it straight away. Unless you have aligned each department that how their work is going to affect the customer and creating the customer experience, only a customer service department or only a call center agent cannot make or create that experience. They can only deliver the experience through them, but they cannot create the experience. So in today's time, the mindset is very much required. The involvement of every department is required, and it's not, like I said, the very basic is first start with the sales process, sales people, and how they are doing the right selling, and then comes to the the backend team, how you are keeping the customer informed. In all this part, you just need to keep one thing as a factor, which we in India first is doing, is like circle of trust. So this is a theme which we are taking as an organization wide, and we are saying whether customer speaks to my sales, to my call center agent, or to any of my people, they should get a feeling that yes, they can trust, which means the level of information what we will ask them and we'll tell them genuinely, honestly, customer will really carry away that experience. And that's what a part which is very critical across the organization, like the previous question which Sachin answered. So the backend team may be only thinking, oh, I just have to do my part once it comes in my kitty. But in our company, we have aligned if the customer payment has to happen in 7 days, even though it has to go through 4 departments, every department is aligned to CRM. Every department gets an update that if there is a case which is going to get escalate, and they all have been, on a soft corner, soft part, have been trained and told that if it is customer, you have to just make sure that the customer issue should get resolved. Rest of the internal processes can be taken care of. So that's a mindset which you have to get it aligned to the top management and across all of those stakeholders who are into the process of handling the customer service request, whether front end or back end.
Okay. So we have another question again. Apart from marketing, what impact does social channel helps in providing support to customer?
So I don't know. Sachin, I think you may have a better answer on that.
Sure. So the question is, apart from marketing, what other impact does social channel have? Now, when we are saying social, actually the definition of social itself is getting changed a little bit. Social used to be thought as Twitter and Facebook, which is in the public domain, and now those social channels are also becoming one-on-one channels with WhatsApp and Twitter DM and Facebook Messenger coming in. But I think the question pertains to the public channels, right? It's an area which you have to tread very carefully, because there is a very clear brand impact. However, there are studies, and I've spoken to a lot of CX leaders. The fear that folks have is what will it do to the brand, right? Um, my understanding is that the traffic is streaming, right? So the lifespan of anything that comes on social is very, very short unless there is a serious problem. People have taken those serious problems also as opportunities. There's one company, and he's a good friend, Abhiraj, runs a company called Urban Clap, where bad experiences published on social also were turned around with some real attention to detail. And you should look at Urban Clap's Twitter handle to understand what I'm saying, or their Facebook page. We have seen two use cases. From a use case standpoint, two use cases on social that really work. The first is the acquisition use case. So let's say that you're running a marketing campaign and somebody wants to know more about it. Can that experience be initiated within Facebook? That's one which has worked really well. So the sales use case. The second is if somebody is escalating on Facebook, right? Which means two or three broken service experiences. You've seen that happening with Zomato. You've seen that happening with Swiggy. A lot of these companies, there's public bashing happening of those companies on their Facebook pages. Make sure that you respond as humans, as honest as possible, and customers understand, right? If the real worry is if you don't respond to queries, if there are unresponded queries, if there is no interaction happening on and you have opened up that channel, that is when a real worry comes. If you're opening up that channel, then make sure that one is responding, and people would come with their escalations. The word expects it. What they expect from you is a response. The best brands in the world are able to do it. So the service experience, which impacts brand, would also get impacted. But some of this is pure public bashing. Don't just worry about it. It's happening with all brands. It can happen to our brand also. That's absolutely okay. Right? One should not worry about it. So service is another use case where you should encourage them to come on to some of the other channels. And also, in some cases, if you see intent is a problem, subtly hint that also. People understand. I, as a consumer, understand when somebody is bashing and organization is responding, whether the intent is bashing or intent is problem solving. That's okay.
So it looks
Any other
like
questions?
we have covered all of our questions. Sachin and Aman, is there anything else you want to cover before a wrap up?
No, I think most of the things already Sachin has put it across, and we have just mentioned the critical part, which again a reiteration is that each company should know their customers and what will be the best approach in reaching to their set of customers. The strategy of communication as well as any technology updation should be in line to that, and should not just run towards what the entire world is going. They may have a different objective, is what we just need to keep ourselves focused.
Absolutely. And with that, don't get bogged down by what's coming new in technology. That's irrelevant. What is relevant is, as Naman said, what ground changes you want to make today, which will make tomorrow a little better. And then some of the projects should be transformational. Even if they fail, you should still have 20, 30, 40% improvement on. There is ample to be done, and start those conversations internally. And at any stage, if we could help, very happy to help. On the back office, front office, I'll start a thread on LinkedIn. Let's see if it gets into an interesting discussion. Thank you so much, Naman, for joining us. And Chaita, thanks for organizing this. I think we can close the webinar now. Thank you, everyone, for joining in today.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Sachin and Shashta.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay.
I'll be also sharing the webinar recording with all the attendees. Thanks again for joining us today. Thank you.